everybody, it's Margo here at My Favorite Quilt Store. And with the beginning of the year, we always like to think of something new and something fun to do. And every year we all have UFOs. And a lot of times we're on our setting our goals for the following year of our sewing and what we want to do. And a lot of times I will always try and say, I'm going to finish a UFO. And a UFO is an unfinished project that maybe we've gotten to a point that we can't figure out how we want to complete it. It's not turning out the way we want to. Something has gone awry with it, and we need a little help or a little push to get over that hump of not being able to finish it so that we can finish that project. So what we're going to do here is a series on how to finish unfinished projects. Like what are some of the stumbling blocks that people have when they're trying to finish a quilt, that they're not liking it, they ran out of fabric, it's not working. They can't figure out what is not right about the quilt or how they want to finish it, so they just put it away and it sits there for a couple of years until they have either new skills or new ideas, or maybe a friend sees it and says, hey, I've got a great idea for you. And so we're going to start trying to do talks here about how to finish up some of those UFOs so that in 2025 you can finish some of those UFOs. So join us in all of our series to see how we're finishing up some UFOs. Everybody, it's Margo and Kelly from My Favorite Quilt Store. How are you doing, Kelly?
Okay.
Good. So we're still continuing on with our UFO series. Kelly has found another UFO in her projects that has a little bit of a snafu to it. So she is asking what would be some great tips or tricks on things that I can do to finish this quilt, or do I just rip it all up and start over?
I'm kind of there.
Okay.
So this is a free pattern. It's Project Jelly Roll. So I started this out with a jelly roll.
All right. And the jelly roll is the Fiesta.
Yes. And I really did a good job with my 1/4 inch seams. They look really good. But if you read the pattern, like I failed to do.
Yeah. So you should. So the first lesson is that you should really read all of the pattern all the way to the end.
Yes.
Okay. So we didn't read the pattern thoroughly all the way through, which is not.
Or maybe it was like a glance. I did it quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But it called for a scant 1/4 inch seams, and a lot of times that's usually written in the first section. It doesn't. I don't know that she. Where do you think you read that at? Oh, here it is. Piecing, assembly, and finishing. Unless specified otherwise, all schemes are a scant 1/4 inch. Arrows indicate pressing directions. So it was here.
Fun fact.
But it's a scant. So when
it
you make
does matter. It does matter.
When you make a scant 1/4 inch, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll still use my 1/4 inch foot, but I'll move the needle over one click, or 2 clicks, so that I have that good scant 1/4 inch, so that I know where I'm sewing at. We're going to do a demo also on scant 1/4 inch versus 1/4 inch. So we will have a link to that video that you can watch on a scant versus a 1/4 inch versus a real 1/4 inch. So a lot of people have a 1/4 inch foot that they use to sew with, and so you went on down the road and sewed yours. So is the problem that this piece is too small?
So yeah,
to cut into the size you need.
It should be 10.5 inches, and it measures out to 10 inches.
So when the block is it says to cut the block 10.5 inches by
6.5.
6.5 inches.
Yep. Which I can do the 6.5 inch part,
right?
No problem.
But you can't do the 10.5 inch. So she measured the smallest one and found out that she has 10 inches, roughly 10 inches instead of 10.5. So she is close to a 1/2 inch off because she has 4 seams that are not 1/4 inch. So so her first thing is. You should maybe get the seam ripper out and rip it.
Yeah.
And I said no. So another option would be is that I would take this and cut the blocks 10 by 6.5. and make them 10 by 6.5. And then since you haven't cut your sashing, you could change your sashing size.
Okay.
But you would have to remember that when you're cutting your sashing to cut it down to the right size. So your quilt would not come out as big as you had initially intended it. And it looks like they set these blocks each different way. So it would take a little bit off the height and the width, both ways, not just one way. So it would be still somewhat proportional.
But hey, nobody is going to see the pattern next to it or measure it. So that doesn't matter to me.
They're not. Or you could increase the size by 1/2 inch. Your strips, so that you use 1/2 inch. You still cut them to the 10.5, but you make these strips a little wider.
And white's going to be easy to come by.
To compensate for the smaller block if you wanted the exact same size. Okay, so those are two ideas. You could look for a different pattern beyond this one because there's lots of jelly roll patterns out there that you like to make this into. Or the other thing I was thinking is that you have a little bit of fabric left up.
I was originally going to do my binding, so I had my binding all kind of like cut out and ready to go.
Okay. So what I was going to say is you could cut these strips in half and sew them to each side, or to sew it to one side, and then when you cut your block, you would cut a little bit of each of these sides off, and you'd have this as the main, and then you would have
like one extra strip.
You'd have some extra strips on each side when you cut this to 10.5. Let's say you had your sashing and everything already cut, and you didn't want to make a change. You could add an extra strip to this end, and then cut these down this way to 10 inches, and then cut your 6 inch. Or 10.5, and then cut your 6 inch this way. So that you have so that this would be the full width of 10. It would only be like half on this side and half the block on, half of the strip on this side and that side. But it would still give you the same sort of effect and width because these would be half the size.
And again, no one's looking at the pattern.
And no one knows what the pattern looks like. So if you had some additional strips left over, you could make this strip. I call that like a coping strip. Because sometimes you got to cope with the problems. And so you would add a little more on to make it the right size.
Okay.
Okay?
That definitely gives me some ideas with that.
So anything else you can think of? Do you think you want to try a new pattern? Or do you think you're going to maybe work with this pattern and change the sizes of your...
Well,
I know you got to think about it.
I got to think about it.
Okay.
But I don't know that I really want to seam up everything because I mean, they are small strips and I don't want to deal with any like extra stretching or anything like that. I definitely have a lot to think about.
Okay, that's fine. And this is not to solve the exact problem right now.
Yeah.
We want to just give you some solutions and some ideas of things to do.
I didn't even think about cutting this an extra 1/2 inch. Like
taking off 1/2 inch. I know, but it's because it didn't. All right. And sometimes it
I was just so frustrated.
Else.
I needed to just set it away for a minute.
Right. And you probably would have come up with that.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd take this pattern and I would put a piece of paper next to it and rewrite what your cutting directions are for this before you cut it so that you can get it exactly right. Just so that you have it written down what you're doing for future reference.
Yeah, because I don't know that I want to go over these. I like the variety that they offer already.
Okay.
Because I did really try to do the placement to where it wasn't the exact same prints, like side by side.
Right.
So zipping or ripping it, like I said, it doesn't sound like a good idea. I like the ones you're throwing at me.
Okay, so the other thing I might do is highlight scant 1/4 inch on this pattern, because in case you decide to do it again, because they show it on the back in like such fun colors, and a lot of times when I get a pattern and I really like it, someone's going to see it and they're going to say, or like once you have this quilt made, someone's going to see it and say, oh, can you make me one similar to that? I got it, and so you're going to possibly make a pattern again. I find that happens to me a lot of times. So if I go back and highlight what I didn't do right the first time or the changes that I might want to make, and that's why I put an extra sheet of paper in there with the changes so that I know what I've done for the future and so that I have a reference in case someone says, hey, can you recreate this?
No, I really like that idea too because my last UFO, I have an extra jelly roll, so I might be able to actually make it correct this time.
It's not just correct. It's just to the dimensions that they had thought it should be.
Yes, But I also have like a binder of things that I've made. So then I could put this in there and highlight it, like you said, and if I do choose to come back to it, because it is a really cool pattern. I love how you could take something kind of crazy and then just add some like solid to it and just bring it to a whole new life. So I really like that.
And hey, my favorite pattern is your binding. I love plaids for binding. So I can't wait to see this quilt finished.
Yeah, I did this is my binding at first, and I was like, no, it needs something else.
It needs something else.
So let's get this quilt finished.
Yeah. So those were the ones that you picked out because of the white background. You did pick those out as to not put inside the quilt.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to have.
I wanted some more contrast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So the other thing you could have done is put those, and I see you did put more of the white backgrounds towards the center of the block so that they weren't on the edge.
I think sometimes when I'm quilting.
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job on this. I'm just pointing out that you did it.
Yeah.
I want to tell you the good stuff you did too.
Yeah.
So it looks like you took, by not putting the white ones in, you don't have to worry about the white being right up next to it. So the other thing that I would say is make sure before you cut these, give them a good press one more time, because I can see like this one just needs a little bit more pressing to it so that it
doesn't long arm weird.
Yeah, and that you get the right size of square that you're wanting to make. So you need to make sure you cut them all exactly the same. Like you might have to shave off. Like let's say your 1/4 inch seam was not right. You need to make sure that these all measure 10 inches or whatever that measurement is that you go with. The length needs, because these will vary now because of a little bobble here or not pressing correctly or something along those lines. I just want you to make sure that you know that you need to make this length, the 10, consistent among all of them. Okay?
Awesome.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see what you do.
I know. Tune in for next time.
Yeah.
I'll have a cute binding.
All right. Follow us. This is project number 4 of our UFO series, and check out what we do next.
Yeah. Happy sewing.